Touch not my anointed, and do my prophets no harm. This solemn command from the scriptures, 1 Chronicles 16 verse 22, is one of the most profound yet often overlooked warnings in the Bible. It speaks to a divine protection over God's chosen people, those he has set apart for his purposes. When we view life through the lens of faith, we recognize that this protection is not just physical but spiritual. The warning, ignored by many, is a reminder of the weighty consequences that follow when one dares to harm or undermine God's anointed. In our daily lives, we often face opposition, ridicule, or even malice from others. Yet, as believers, we are called to trust in God's sovereignty and to remain steadfast in faith. Psalm 105 verse 15 reminds us, "Do not touch my anointed ones, do my prophets no harm," signifying God's anger at those who seek to harm those he has chosen. It's easy to become overwhelmed with stress or anxiety when confronted with hostility. Studies have shown that prolonged stress weakens the body's immune system. But nothing accelerates spiritual decay more than coming against God's chosen. God does not stand idle when his anointed are under attack. In fact, when others set themselves against you, they are not only provoking your distress, they are inviting divine judgment upon themselves. This is not to say that we wish harm upon anyone, but rather it's a recognition of God's justice. Just as a storm follows a disruption in the atmosphere, so too does God's righteous intervention follow the attack on his people. Proverbs 26 verse 27 warns, "Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them." Those who seek to bring harm to God's anointed will inevitably face the consequences of their actions. Therefore, as we wait upon the Lord, trusting in his plans, we can be assured that he will defend us and that those who oppose his will face the repercussions of their defiance. 1. The tipping point of divine patience. There's a point in life where everything reaches its limit, even God's patience. People often operate under the illusion that they can keep attacking, mocking, or undermining someone chosen by God without facing real consequences. They mistake God's silence for indifference, and in doing so, they wrongly believe they are free to continue their destructive actions without consequence. What they fail to understand is that there is always a threshold, a tipping point, where God's patience runs out and mercy gives way to judgment. It's at that precise moment that the consequences begin to unfold, not just in the spiritual realm, but in very real, physical and tangible ways. The truth is, God, in his infinite wisdom, knows exactly when enough is enough. He watches, he listens, and he patiently waits, giving those who oppose you time to change their ways. However, when they cross that line, the universe itself responds. The sickness that suddenly overtakes your enemies isn't a coincidence, nor is it just some random stroke of bad luck. It's a direct consequence of their actions, a sign that the divine is actively pushing back against the wrongs they've done. Their malicious attempts to hurt you have triggered a divine response that begins to manifest in the form of illness, unrest, and chaos in their own lives. What begins as a subtle warning, a whisper, slowly grows into something much more forceful. Their bodies, which may have once been strong and healthy, begin to break down under the weight of the harm they've tried to inflict on others. Sickness becomes a physical manifestation of divine frustration, a symbol of the fact that they have poked at something sacred, something far beyond their understanding, and now the balance of justice is being restored. Their very actions are poisoning them, causing them to deteriorate both physically and spiritually. But there's still mercy in this process. God, in his mercy, doesn't strike all at once. He gives them a chance to change, a window of opportunity to repent and correct their ways before the consequences become irreversible. But if they persist, ignoring the signs, their fate becomes sealed. The sickness that started as a subtle whisper will soon be a loud, uncontrollable scream that ravages their lives. By the time they realize the full weight of what is happening, they will already be caught deep in a divine reckoning that they can neither understand nor escape. 2. Spiritual immune system collapse. When your enemies relentlessly come after you, they're not just attacking you, they're unknowingly undermining their own spiritual immune system. Just as the human body has a natural defense against infection, the spiritual world operates in a similar way, with a divine protection surrounding those who are chosen by God. And while they might think they're inflicting harm on you, what they don't realize is that each time they try, they are actually weakening their own defenses. Imagine it like this: it's as if they're throwing punches at a brick wall, but instead of the wall being harmed, their own hands begin to bleed. At first, they might not even notice the consequences of their actions. They might feel a little more tired than usual, or experience minor frustrations that seem to have no clear origin. But slowly, these subtle signs build up. What once was a small issue becomes a much bigger problem, and before they realize it, they've caught a sickness that no doctor can diagnose or explain. What they fail to understand is that each negative action, every lie they tell, every ounce of jealousy they harbor, every attempt to bring you down is slowly eating away at them. It's almost ironic when you think about it. They are so focused on trying to harm you that they fail to see that they're digging their own graves. The damage they are causing to you only rebounds back on them, and the more they push, the worse it gets for them. You might almost feel sorry for them, but in truth, they've brought this upon themselves. God doesn't need to step in with some dramatic intervention because they are already doing the damage themselves. Every malicious act sets off a chain reaction of negativity that circles back to them. What they don't realize is that they are their own worst enemy. They're like a person who steps into quicksand, thinking they're just taking one step forward when in reality they're sinking deeper with each negative act. By the time they understand the weight of their situation, it's too late. The very sickness that haunts them is the consequence of their own actions. They've attacked someone under divine protection, and now they're left helpless, wondering why they can't shake the illness that seems to cling to them like a shadow. Turns out, messing with the chosen doesn't just bring consequences to the victim, it brings sickness to the attacker as well. 3. Cosmic repercussions. When your enemies come after you, they're not just engaging in a personal vendetta, they're throwing the entire spiritual universe off balance. The universe itself operates on a delicate system of order and justice, and every action they take against you is like a stone thrown into a still pond, causing ripples that extend far beyond their immediate intentions. What they don't realize is that their attack doesn't only affect you, it disrupts the harmony of the spiritual realm, and the universe responds accordingly. Each malicious act, every attempt to harm or destroy you, sends shockwaves through the divine order. At first, these ripples are subtle, but the more they attack, the larger and more destructive these waves become. The consequences are inevitable. Their bodies become the battleground for all the negativity they've unleashed. It's as though they've triggered a spiritual immune response, and illness is the natural result. The sickness that follows isn't some arbitrary punishment, it's the universe's way of saying, "You've gone too far." Just as the human body reacts to an infection with fever and discomfort, the universe reacts to their disruptions with sickness and chaos in their lives. They may experience sudden health problems, inexplicable fatigue, or an overwhelming mental fog that clouds their judgment. It's the cosmic equivalent of a red flag, signaling them that they've pushed too far. Here's where it gets even more interesting. The sickness they experience is not just a slap on the wrist. It's a warning shot, a chance to turn things around. The universe, in its mercy, gives them the opportunity to correct their behavior before the consequences grow worse. But more often than not, they don't see the signs. Consumed by their hatred and jealousy, they double down, thinking they can somehow escape the inevitable. Instead of turning away from their destructive path, they continue to push forward, unaware that they're playing a game they can never win. By the time the full weight of the cosmic consequences hits them, it's too late. The universe has already set the scales of justice in motion, and they have lost all control. What began as an attempt to harm you without repercussions has now spiraled into an irreversible situation. They thought they could mess with you without facing any consequences, but now they're facing the reality of what happens when the divine order is disrupted. The scales of justice have been tipped, and they will pay the price for their actions. 4. God's retribution, not always immediate, but inevitable. Your enemies often think they're untouchable because they haven't seen immediate consequences for coming after you. They mistake the delay in divine response for a free pass to continue their harmful behavior. What they don't realize is that God's retribution doesn't work on their timeline. It's not about instant karma or swift punishment, it's about perfect timing, the kind of timing that is beyond human understanding. It's about letting people dig their own graves while they're too distracted, believing they are winning. What seems like a delay in the universe's justice is actually a calculated, meticulous process, one that ensures the consequences are not only inevitable, but also perfectly aligned with the actions they've taken. God's judgment isn't always a lightning bolt from the sky, it's far more intricate and deliberate. In many ways, the sickness that eventually comes to them isn't just a form of punishment, it's a carefully orchestrated response. It's meant to give them every possible chance to reconsider, to repent, and to turn back before things spiral out of control. Think of it as a kind of warning system, a divine intervention that appears subtle but is no less powerful. God allows them space to wander into dangerous territory, giving them the chance to change their course. The moment they choose to cross the line repeatedly, however, the inevitable consequences start to unfold. It's almost as if God is saying, "I've been watching, and you've been warned, but because there's no immediate action, they assume nothing will happen." They push harder, thinking they are in control, unaware that all the while, their fate is quietly being sealed. The delays in divine judgment were never a sign of safety, it was God's way of giving them enough rope to hang themselves. It's not that God didn't see their cruelty or that divine justice is slow, it's that sometimes the best kind of justice is the one that unfolds gradually, almost imperceptibly, giving the wrongdoer a chance to turn back, even as they unknowingly dig their own hole deeper. What makes it even more intriguing is how gradual this judgment often is. It doesn't come crashing down with a sudden, explosive force. Instead, it chips away at them slowly and persistently. At first, they might feel a sense of unease, the subtle hints of bad luck that creep into their lives. Sleepless nights, unexplained anxiety, minor accidents, or a sudden string of unfortunate events may all seem like coincidence, but they're not. It's the universe's way of responding to the wrongs they've inflicted. Slowly, their world unravels, and they can't quite put their finger on why it's happening. They may even dismiss it, thinking it's just life being unfair, or perhaps that they're just going through a rough patch. But deep down, something begins to shift in them, as the consequences of their actions, though slow, are now unfolding, and they have no way of stopping it. It's the inevitable result of thinking they could toy with divine will and get away with it. 5. Sickness as an echo of their own energy. The sickness your enemies experience isn't just some random occurrence. It's the direct consequence of their own actions and energy, an echo of the darkness they've been sending out into the world. When they focus their energy on trying to harm you, their intentions become twisted and toxic, and they are unwittingly poisoning themselves. What they don't realize is that every negative thought, every jealous glance, every malicious action they direct toward you only serves to build up their own inner turmoil. Over time, that toxicity festers inside them, growing stronger and more insidious. They think they're attacking you, but in reality they are only harming themselves. Their bodies become the vessel for the very darkness they intended for you. It's a strange, almost paradoxical form of justice. Every harmful thought or action they send your way gets absorbed into their own lives, slowly transforming into physical or mental sickness. The more they try to hurt you, the more their own negative energy begins to manifest, making them sick in ways they cannot understand. It's as if their own bitterness, anger, and hatred is coming back to haunt them, and no amount of denial or medical intervention can explain why they feel so ill. This isn't just a random string of bad luck, it's a direct result of the energy they've been projecting into the world. What starts as a simple, bad intention toward you turns into a creeping sickness that they can't shake. It grows steadily, like a shadow that follows them everywhere they go. At first, they may not make the connection, dismissing their symptoms as stress, exhaustion, or simply life being unfair. They might blame external factors, work, family, or even genetics. But deep inside, something begins to unravel, a gnawing sense that they're not just sick from normal causes. Their health starts deteriorating in ways that no doctor's visit can fully explain. It's not a random misfortune, it's the result of the darkness they've been carrying inside, manifesting outwardly as sickness. The irony of it all is striking. While they're busy plotting your downfall, they are unknowingly sealing their own fate. Their sickness becomes a reflection of the ugliness they've been harboring, the very negativity they've tried to project onto you. The more they attempt to damage your life, the more they contaminate their own. It's as though the universe is making them live with the consequences of their actions, turning every bit of darkness they've sent out right back at them, until it manifests in their own bodies and minds. This is the law of karma in action. What they sent out into the world is coming back to them. While your enemies are focused on attacking you in the physical world, there's a whole other realm they know nothing about, the unseen spiritual courtroom. In this courtroom, their every action, every cruel word, every harmful intention is being watched, recorded, and judged by forces far beyond their comprehension. Every time they try to harm you, it's like they are standing trial in a divine courtroom where angels, spiritual entities, and even the universe itself bear witness to the injustice they are committing. These forces are not passive observers, they are actively recording every detail, every harmful action, and every moment of cruelty, all of which will eventually be used against them. What your enemies don't realize is that this trial isn't about if they'll be judged, it's about when. The evidence is piling up against them, and with every attack they launch, they're only strengthening the case that will ultimately be brought against them. They think they're getting away with something, that their harmful actions will go unnoticed, but in reality they're building a spiritual war sheet that will eventually catch up with them. Judgment is not always swift, but it is certain. What's fascinating, however, is that when the verdict is finally delivered, sickness is often the first sign that the scales are tipping against them. It's not immediate, but it is inevitable. Sickness, in this sense, becomes a divine sentence, a warning that they've been found guilty in the higher realms. It may start small, like a whisper from the universe, a subtle hint that their actions have not gone unnoticed. But if they continue to ignore the signs, the symptoms will grow louder, more disruptive, until their bodies break down under the weight of their own wrongdoing. The consequences of their actions are now manifesting in real, physical ways, and there's no way to escape it. What makes this process so fascinating is that, while they're completely focused on you, trying to destroy your life, they remain blind to what's happening in the spiritual realm. By the time they realize they're on trial, the judgment has already been passed. The sickness they are experiencing is the universe's way of telling them, your time is up. It's the inevitable result of trying to harm another, a reflection of the truth that all actions, whether good or bad, eventually come full circle. Your enemies may think that a quick trip to the doctor will save them from the consequences of their actions. They'll rush to load up on prescriptions, search for specialists, and try every home remedy they can find on the internet, believing they can outsmart whatever affliction has come their way. But here's the hard truth: when God has already decreed a sickness as a consequence for their wrongdoing, no amount of medicine, no matter how advanced or well-intentioned, can touch it. It's like trying to treat a broken bone with a band-aid, temporary relief at best, but no solution to the deeper issue. While the symptoms may seem to fade, or they may experience a brief moment of comfort, the spiritual message behind their sickness remains deeply rooted. The issue at hand is not physical, it's spiritual. Their body is simply the messenger, expressing the spiritual consequences of their actions. They might find temporary relief in the form of medications or treatments, but what they fail to recognize is that the root of their illness is spiritual. They're experiencing the fallout of their own negative energy, karma, if you will, and they're so caught up in treating the symptoms that they completely miss the point. They may continue seeking conventional healing, but no doctor or remedy can cure what's been spiritually set in motion. The true healing comes not from a prescription, but from within, from acknowledging their wrongs, seeking forgiveness, and realigning their spirit with a higher divine order. There's a thick irony in this situation. After spending so much time and energy attempting to bring you down, they find themselves caught in a personal health crisis. They never expected their actions to lead to their own suffering, but that's exactly what happens when you tamper with divine order. Some lessons can only be learned the hard way. Their attacks on you have backfired, manifesting in ways that no amount of medical intervention can resolve. All the doctors in the world won't be able to fix the brokenness they've caused by defying spiritual law. Attacking a chosen one is like throwing a boomerang into a hurricane. You think you're launching a good shot, but it's coming right back at you, only this time it's returning with extra force, momentum and vengeance. Your enemies believe they're being clever. They think they're plotting and scheming behind the scenes, pulling the strings with their hurtful actions. But what they fail to realize is that the spiritual laws of the universe are already working against them. They may think they can outwit the divine, but their harm is being returned to them, multiplied, intensified, and magnified. Everything they try to send your way comes back at them, only this time it's much bigger, stronger, and way messier than they anticipated. What they thought would be a subtle strike turns into something they never saw coming. They'll be sitting there smug, confident that they've got the upper hand, when suddenly they're hit with a mysterious illness, an unexpected streak of bad luck, or perhaps overwhelming mental exhaustion that they can't shake. It's as if karma has put their own misdeeds on a turbo engine. What they tried to do to you has come back with vengeance. They thought they could bend the rules or ignore divine law, but that's like trying to cheat gravity. It's impossible. The universe doesn't just settle the score, it does it with interest. Their efforts to harm you are now compounding against them. The negativity they projected onto you has returned, and now they are forced to deal with the consequences. What they meant for you, whether it was hatred, jealousy, or cruelty, now becomes their own burden. They throw hate, and it comes back as chronic headaches. They throw envy, and it manifests as unrelenting stress. At the end of the day, sickness isn't just a warning, it's the price they have to pay for thinking they could tamper with someone who is protected by divine order. And this price is no small amount. No doctor, no matter how skilled, can heal what God has already decreed. In this way, the universe not only balances the scales, but it does so in a way that is far beyond their understanding, leaving them to face the consequences of their actions without escape. For many, sickness is viewed as a simple physical ailment, a random stroke of bad luck, a virus that can be wiped out with a prescription, or just a minor inconvenience that passes with time. But for those who are spiritually aware, sickness serves a much deeper, more profound purpose. It becomes the body's way of communicating something that the mind refuses to accept: the truth. When your enemies continue to harm you, turning a blind eye to all other signs and warnings, their bodies step in as the messenger, delivering a message they can no longer ignore. At first, they may dismiss their symptoms, thinking it's just another cold or a minor ache. They may believe it's something that will go away on its own, as it often has in the past. But when the symptoms persist or worsen, it's a wake-up call they cannot afford to ignore. The sickness acts as an alarm system, a divine intervention that goes off when they refuse to listen to the subtle nudges of their conscience or the signs from the universe. Their bodies begin to bear the weight of the spiritual damage they've caused, forcing them to confront the reality they've been running from. What's most intriguing is how the sickness unfolds. It won't necessarily strike them all at once. It starts slow, creeping into their lives like a subtle whisper, perhaps a cough here, a headache there, or chronic fatigue they can't shake off. It's as though their body is trying to tell them, pay attention. Something's wrong, but they don't listen. They continue to ignore the signs, too wrapped up in their own world, until the illness becomes undeniable. By the time they realize something is seriously wrong, the spiritual message has already settled deep within them. They may not fully understand what's happening or why they are suffering, but one thing becomes clear: they are suffering because they have been wrong. Their bodies, now riddled with illness, are screaming the truth that their minds refuse to hear. The sickness is a final warning, a divine message telling them to stop before things spiral further out of control. They may try to push through, to ignore it, but the message is clear: their actions have consequences, and now their body is forcing them to face the truth. The slow rot of injustice. Sickness doesn't always arrive like a sudden storm, crashing down with force and fury. Often it sneaks up on your enemies, creeping quietly into their lives like a slow rot, slowly eating away at the edges of their existence. At first they may not notice it, or perhaps they dismiss it as a minor inconvenience. It begins with small, easily ignored signs, a constant feeling of exhaustion that no amount of rest can alleviate, a nagging headache that lingers through the day, or restless nights where sleep seems elusive and peace feels impossible to grasp. They might think it's just stress or the changing seasons, something that will pass with time. But over time, the symptoms intensify. The slow rot continues its silent work, sapping their vitality and zest for life. They become disconnected from the things that once brought them joy, the things that once filled their heart with energy and purpose. And their relationships begin to suffer because they can't give their loved ones the attention or care they once did. The disease isn't just physical, it is a spiritual decay, festering beneath the surface, hidden from plain sight. As they grow more consumed with their bitterness, envy, and obsession with undermining you, the sickness takes root deeper inside them. It's not a dramatic punishment that demands attention, no, it's far more insidious. It works quietly, methodically, like a poison that slowly spreads through their body, mind, and spirit. They may not even realize what's happening until it's too late. Their world begins to crumble in slow motion, and yet they are powerless to stop it. The greatest tragedy is that they are too preoccupied with their efforts to harm you, too focused on their hatred and schemes to recognize the warning signs. And while they continue in their destructive ways, the sickness deepens and spreads, subtly shifting the course of their lives in a way they can't avoid. The slow rot of injustice, though quiet at first, becomes a force too powerful to ignore, and by the time they notice it, the damage is done. It's a spiritual autopsy. As your enemies suffer the effects of this gradual decay, they may find themselves trapped in a whirlwind of confusion and frustration. They won't understand why things aren't going their way. At first they might believe it's just a random affliction, something that will pass. But in reality they are undergoing a spiritual autopsy, a deep, divine examination of their lives, their actions, and their intentions. This sickness is no accident. It's God's way of peeling back the layers of their existence, exposing the rotten parts of their character that they've been hiding or denying for so long. Each symptom they experience is like a cut through the fabric of their being, exposing the decay caused by their hatred, envy, and malice. The fever, the constant fatigue, the pain they endure, these are not just physical symptoms. They are signs of deeper spiritual sickness. They may try to explain it away, blaming it on bad luck, on stress, or on some external cause. But the truth is much darker. God is revealing the darkness within them, the toxic energy they've been carrying for far too long. This isn't a random illness, it's a divine dissection, one that cuts through the layers of their soul, exposing the true nature of their hearts. Picture them as they struggle with their illness, unable to see the larger picture. They may try to push through the discomfort, determined to continue with their misguided mission. But as the sickness wears them down, they are forced to confront the festering wounds that have been with them all along. The jealousy that motivated them to attack you, the bitterness that poisoned their heart, the envy that clouded their judgment, these are the true sources of their affliction. God's autopsy is not just about physical symptoms, it's about spiritual malice. Every cough, every fever, and every moment of suffering serves as a painful reminder of the consequences of defying divine order. As they fight against their illness, they also fight against the realization that their pain is a result of their own choices. The suffering becomes a public display, a living testament to the price of their actions. Those around them, friends, family, colleagues, begin to see the toll their bitterness has taken. The whispers start, they had it coming in this way. Their suffering serves not only as a personal punishment but as a cautionary tale for others. It's a reminder to those who might be watching that defying divine protection, attacking the chosen ones, or living in opposition to God's will comes at a heavy price. Rather than finding sympathy or support, your enemies find themselves becoming a cautionary figure, a symbol of what happens when one goes against divine order. The very act of attacking you, of attempting to undermine you, has backfired in the most spectacular way. It has revealed their true nature and left them struggling to come to terms with a reality they can no longer escape. Their affliction becomes not just a personal tragedy, but a divine lesson for all who witness it, a lesson that no one can ignore. A spiritual imbalance. You, as a chosen one, serve a higher purpose. You are a spiritual barometer, an instrument that measures the alignment of energies around you. Your very presence reflects a harmony, a balance that many may overlook, but one that is incredibly powerful. People around you might not even realize it, but you are constantly shifting the energetic balance of the world around you. Your energy serves as a gauge of what is in alignment with the divine and what is not. When enemies choose to attack you, it's not just a personal attack. They are disrupting the natural order of things. They are disturbing a delicate balance that has been set in place by divine will. It's like throwing a rock into a calm pond. The once serene waters are instantly disrupted, creating ripples that spread out in every direction. These ripples are not just contained to the moment of attack, they extend far beyond the enemy's understanding, affecting energies in ways they can't begin to comprehend. Their attempts to undermine you don't just harm you, they harm themselves. In the process, they throw themselves completely out of sync with the divine energies that govern the universe. They believe they are gaining the upper hand, but the reality is far different. It's almost comical to watch them stumble blindly, unaware that they are only damaging themselves further. They are essentially throwing their own spiritual GPS off course, leading themselves into greater chaos. As they struggle to regain their balance, their energies clash with yours. This imbalance doesn't just affect their lives in minor ways, it starts to manifest in significant, noticeable ways. They begin to experience the consequences of their actions in real time. Sickness isn't just an inconvenience for them, it's a loud, undeniable signal that they've strayed from the divine path. Imagine them walking through their day, feeling good about their misguided mission, only to be blindsided by fatigue or an illness that lingers far longer than they expect. It's as though their bodies are sending them a clear message: hey, you might want to reconsider your life choices. They may not understand why they feel the way they do. They may try to dismiss it or ignore it. But deep down they know. They are battling against an energy that is simply not meant for them. They are out of sync with the divine flow, and the universe is nudging them back into alignment. The more they resist, the more their health deteriorates, and the harder it becomes for them to regain balance. They are stuck in a cycle of chaos, desperately trying to control something that is beyond their power. While they are caught in this struggle, the message is crystal clear: attacking a chosen one is not just a personal affront, it is an invitation for divine imbalance to take hold. The universe has a way of reminding us that everything is interconnected. When you disrupt the harmony of the universe, when you challenge the divine order, you are bound to face the consequences. And those consequences may be more severe than you ever imagined. In life, there are moments when the clarity of our minds begins to fade, replaced by confusion, anxiety, and a sense of instability. What we once believed we had control over seems to slip away, and by the time we realize something is amiss, it may already be too late. The turmoil is not just physical but emotional, spiritual, and mental. Our peace is disturbed, and the sense of control we once had crumbles. Often this destruction is caused by forces outside our control, the actions of others who, through envy, malice, or wrongdoing, attempt to sow discord in our lives. But what is striking is the irony that in trying to harm us, they end up being consumed by the very darkness they try to impose upon us. Their actions, driven by negative intentions, slowly return upon them, unraveling their peace and joy in ways they cannot understand. In the grand scheme of God's creation, this principle is beautifully illustrated in the scriptures, where we are reminded that every action, whether good or evil, comes with consequences. Proverbs 26 verse 27 tells us, Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. This biblical truth serves as a powerful reminder that no injustice, no matter how small or seemingly inconsequential, goes unnoticed by God. While it may not always be immediately evident, the seeds of negativity and harm eventually bear fruit, and not in the way one expects. Those who set out to harm others often find themselves ensnared by their own actions, and this slow but inevitable unraveling can be seen as a manifestation of God's justice at work. The concept of the chosen ones in Scripture further exemplifies this divine order. The chosen ones, those who live in alignment with God's will, are not immune to adversity. In fact, they often face the greatest challenges. But these struggles are not random, they serve a higher purpose. Romans 8 verse 28 promises, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." The struggles of the chosen ones are not simply for their own personal growth, they are a part of a much larger divine plan. Even in the face of opposition, the chosen ones remain under the protection and guidance of God's unshakable love. When enemies launch attacks, whether through ill-willed actions or words, they often unwittingly trigger a chain of events that exposes their own weaknesses. It is as though they have set the stage for their own undoing, for the very harm they sought to inflict upon others comes back to haunt them. As Psalm 7 verse 15 to 16 warns, "Whoever digs a hole and scoops it out falls into the pit they have made. The trouble they cause recoils on them, their violence comes down on their own heads." The chosen ones, in their steadfast faith, become living testimonies to the truth that God is always at work, restoring balance in His creation, even when it seems like the scales are tipped in favor of injustice. The story of the chosen ones is ultimately one of hope. It is a story of resilience, transformation, and divine victory. Adversity may come in many forms, but it is in these moments of trial that the chosen ones find their greatest growth. They are not only strengthened in their faith, but also shine as beacons of hope for others who walk a similar path. They show us that, in the end, love, truth, and justice will always prevail. Their journey is a living testimony to the fact that God's plan is always greater than any obstacle or opposition. As the chosen ones continue to walk in faith, guided by God's light, they illuminate the way for others. Their strength becomes an example of divine resilience, and their victory is a testament to the unwavering support of the Creator. In the end, it is not the darkness of the world that defines us, but the light of God's love and justice that leads us through it. Let this be a reminder to us all, no matter how great the trials we face, the ultimate victory belongs to the Lord, and His plan for us is filled with hope, love, and redemption. If you have found this message inspiring, join us on this spiritual journey by subscribing to our channel. Together, we will continue to explore God's plan for our lives and grow in faith and wisdom.